Thank you for joining us today on the Rescue and Revive Gospel Show. The Gospel Show is a branch of Rescue and Revive Ministries, a mobile gospel ministry that seeks to preach the gospel, teach the gospel, and reach all. To find out more, visit us at rescueandrevive.org. Again, that's rescueandrevive.org. God bless you, and enjoy the show.
Well, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Rescue and Revive Gospel Show. We also say hello to our Facebook Live viewers today. In studio, we have Pastor Matt Smeltzer of Grace Covenant Church and also the Bethlehem Family Shelter.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, man. I know you were here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I pulled in, you were already there.
I don't like to be lost. Being on time is always late for me.
Right, yes. I tell my students at North Star, or my own kids, I will tell them too, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. I live by that. I would have done the same thing, especially first time around, so I commend you for that.
Oh, thank you.
So we have one viewer on. If you're viewing Facebook Live and you have a question, feel free to post it, and I'll try to answer it. It's happened in the past where I haven't been able to. But this will play, as I said, coming on WYSL in a couple Sundays from now. It'll play twice at 4 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. But let's get into it.
Yeah.
Let's start off with Grace Covenant. Mm-hmm. Grace Covenant Church has a rich history.
Beautiful.
On the west side of town in Rochester, kind of the Chilai, considered Chilai area. I've had the pleasure of being there. You allowed me to minister there one time. Thank you for that in your absence. You've been there for a couple years now, correct?
About 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Tell us what you've learned in those 3 years. I know it's your first head pastorate. I know that they were looking for a while. They've had a few here and there. But it seems like for a 3-year stretch, seems to be like a good fit for you. Talk to us a little bit about Grace Covenant.
You know, it's a small congregation, and if anyone wants to visit, 224 Chestnut Ridge, 14624. But I always say Grace Covenant has all of the essentials. They absolutely love Jesus Christ. Do
we have to use the word essentials after the COVID?
Sure. Well, but these are good essentials.
Right, go ahead.
I was going to mess with you and wear my mask.
Please don't. I would have ripped it off, but go ahead.
But they have all the essentials. They really do. I mean, they love Jesus. They love the Word. They love me. They love my family. They love each other. You know, one thing that's so special about them is if someone is sick, I get a call or a text, Pastor Matt, I visited so-and-so.
Yeah.
They don't just wait for me. They love each other.
Yeah.
You know,
awesome.
But what you're not going to get there, you're not going to get, the water slide in the cotton candy machine. You're not going to get the fruits.
There's enough of that. Yeah, there's enough.
Yeah.
I went there. I love the setup. It's kind of an older type of, architectural setting, and you got some really, the churches I've been in like that are around that size. I've been in a number of them with this type of ministry, Rescue and Revive Ministries. I'd like to say there's always some gems in that field, so to speak. You got 20, 30 people, but out of those 20 or 30 people, they're all precious to God. But you know what I mean? They're gems. There's a couple that are like, man, these people are disciples. They love the Lord. They're engaged in it. Talk a little bit about some. You don't have to mention gems.
No, but there's some people that were there for when the first brick was laid. I mean, because the church started off, there's a history of it being in a home, that then I think a community center, I think a firehouse at one point, until now where we have this building. And so there's a lot of history. It used to be a school from K to 12.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of history.
Talk to me a little bit. I'm going to embarrass one person if they watch. Talk to me a little bit, because I've always admired this man. Talk to me about Dr. Jeffrey McGee and his role at Grace Covenant.
Well, love him. I mean, it would be hard to summarize him and what he does in just like one capacity. I mean, he's on the worship team, but he also acts as our custodian. He just does so much. But the thing at Grace Covenant, I mean, if I had to smack a label on him, he's a family member.
Yes.
I mean, if there's someone's birthday, he's making a cake for someone. I mean, he's a servant. He really is.
Yeah. You can definitely see that and hear that. I enjoyed interacting with him. I met him when I was working campus safety at Roberts. We had some good interactions, and then seeing him that Sunday, we're able to kind of reconnect. So he's one of your gems for sure.
And I would be remiss not to mention it, but he's an amazing singer.
He really is.
Yeah,
he really is gifted musically, and we're thankful for Dr. Jeffrey McGee. Let me transition a little bit, because believe it or not, we're already 5 minutes in.
All right.
Totally go by that. You just started a new work, and I've said this to you before, and I'm not embarrassed to say this. I think you and I are theologically somewhat aligned. I think we're pretty close. You really have a apostolic, pioneering, trailblazing, whatever conservative. I'll get more and more conservative the more I use it. Apostolic, pioneering. Yeah. But you have that fervor. You have that kind of calling. So you started the Bethlehem Family Shelter from the ground up not too long ago. Tell us about the vision. Tell us about how that work is progressing.
So I would have to take it back to November 2019 when the Lord first gave me the vision. And at that time, I was working at the Open Door Mission and still doing a lot of outreach. But there was a constant need that I would see over and over again. And that would be when a whole family unit is facing homelessness. Mm-hmm. Because there's women and children shelters, there's men's shelters, but it's rare to have a whole family shelter and keeping them all together in a Christ-like environment. And then it was more like a download. So as soon as that idea sparked in my head, processes and things just started flooding, and I just started writing things down, and then here we are. Now I have 4 units, so I have 4 families that I'm helping. I'm completely full. I mean, there's an anointing on it. So you look at it just from a year of it going from just a thought to it actually happening. Every meal is covered. I have volunteers saying that they want to help. I mean, and just the donations and contributions are coming in. And you know, one premise that I work with Bethlehem is not a competitive spirit. That I say always hold it loose. You know, so if the Lord gives me something, and if another agency or someone else needs it, you know, I'm not afraid of the Lord running out of resources. Yeah. He's going to provide.
Yeah, you know, you talk about that. It's interesting. I just mentioned this at a church recently. The principle of giving. It's not just monetarily. Yeah. You actually have to be ready to give your people away. And a lot of times people don't realize that. I just taught on Philippians here. And I was looking at Timothy and Epaphroditus, and I talked about organic discipleship. You know, Timothy was raised up by Paul, then he was sent away. Same thing with Titus. That's really always been the heart of God, is to invest and then give away, right? Yeah. Given it shall be given unto you, right? So that principle still applies.
A lot of times, I think sometimes in ministry, you know, churches, we can step into a fear base. Like sometimes these resources are going to run out, and I have to operate in like a competitive spirit. Right. But it's so freeing when we don't have to. So just like last week, I had a volunteer came down with like a stomach bug or something. They couldn't bring the meal in, but I knew it was my responsibility to provide the meals for everyone. So I took it out of the savings that I had, provided the meal. I got back to my church. There was already a check that surpassed.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, amazing. You know, and then I saw that, I smiled, and it's like, you know, that's just the way our God works.
That's it.
You know, and I don't, you know, at that moment, I actually declared in my mind, it is solidified it that Bethlehem will not rely on government funding. It won't. Like, I don't mind if there's a grant and someone wants to fund me for what I'm already doing.
Sure.
Right. But I'm not going to bend what Bethlehem is doing to fit that, because I love what the Lord is doing, and I want to keep seeing Him as the provider of those resources. And honestly, it's fun to watch.
Sure it is.
You know,
his fingerprints.
Yeah.
You see his fingerprints. You never have to worry about that. You can have peace about it. It's awesome to see it. And you know, if you get the government involved, there's pros and cons to that.
Sometimes it's golden handcuffs.
That's a good way of putting it. Remember that.
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, I told you this years ago. You know, before you started Bethlehem Family Shelter, you started the pastor at Grace Covenant. You had worked alongside Father's Heart Ministry, and you kind of started your own thing in a sense. He gave you kind of, I think Pastor Russ had given you one of the areas there, and you kind of really embraced that. But since that time, and even beforehand, I've noticed you were on staff at Open Door Mission. I mean, there's a thread of caring for the homeless.
Sure.
And I told you a while ago, you're kind of the pastor to the homeless. That's what I noticed a long time ago. What is it about that particular demographic that draws you to them, to care for them so much at large in the city of Rochester?
Well, I mean, so when you and I were first talking about that, you know, I think I had some resistance to it, because I see myself as just more reaching out to any need. You know, but that's just such a need that it was right in front of me so often, working in the city, and I would see people on the streets. But, you know, the more I've done it, I've also seen such an authenticity
Yeah, sure.
Right? I mean, there's no pretentiousness. I mean, it's very raw.
Yes.
You've preached at the shelter, you know, and it's one of my favorite places to preach.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and you know, and sometimes you might abandon all your notes and say, okay, well, this is what they want to talk about, and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, I had one of my favorite prayers that I've ever heard was from a prostitute that was coming to Christ. She was talking with me, and her expression, it's going to sound a little off color, but it's still PG, so don't worry about it. But so I'm praying with her, and she says, Lord, help me not be a slut anymore. Wow. And that was her phrasing, and I thought about that, and I said, if that, you're not going to hear that in church vernacular. You're not going to hear that in church vernacular. But if you look at what she was saying that lifestyle is disgusting. I don't want that anymore, and I'm seeing you as Lord, right? And I'm seeing you as the one that can save me from that. Yeah. So that simple prayer was beautiful. Yeah. It was absolutely beautiful.
No, it's just yeah. You know what? It's interesting you say that, because as you're talking about that, I'm thinking to myself, imagine in a church, some churches maybe will say, unfortunately, if someone were to come up and pray like that, either out loud or maybe one-on-one in the front or the back of the church, it might be frowned upon.
Sure. But
the reality is that's what Christ desires. Truth on the inward parts. Sure. You know, you look at Luke 15. And there's two groups of people, right? There's the Pharisee and the publican, and then, there's the Pharisee and the Sadducee, and then there's the publican and, the sinner, it's called. So you got the just and the unjust. And we know that the Pharisee is self-righteous and looking down upon that person, when Jesus is actually using a parable going to rebuke them.
Sure.
And, I think of a passage where Jesus says, hey, the harlot and the publican get into the kingdom of heaven before you do. And because he desires that transparency, that truth on the inward parts, which a lot of times, quote unquote, churchiness or religiosity works directly against.
I remember hearing one time someone said, it's more dangerous to grow up in a church environment and just think that you're saved, or think you have enough Christ or enough church that I don't even need Christ, right? Because I can play this role very comfortable. But when you have someone that hit the rock bottom and just says, you know what, I've done this, and I'm sick of going over this hamster wheel over and over, and I need Christ. Yeah. It's actually a much safer place to be in that the reality of that, because we all need the Savior.
Yeah, we do.
Right. But for someone to think that they don't is actually a horrible disservice, to themselves.
You're absolutely right. Let me ask you this. So we've touched on Grace Covenant. We've touched on Bethlehem Family Shelter. One more wrinkle that's new to you. You just got involved with an affiliate, a ministry that also has a show here on WYSL, and that's Youth for Christ, Executive Director Mike Hennessy. So tell us a little about what you're going to be doing with them.
So Mike and I, ever since he became the executive director, he and I have been talking. We just wanted to find an opportunity, and this just blossomed. And so my role is the coordinator of Friday Night Lights. And Friday Night Lights is a once-a-month activity. We're hoping that it can become more than once a month, but right now it's a once-a-month activity for the creative types.
Right.
So because they already had a wonderful, thriving basketball program going on with Felix, and it's going wonderfully. But what about all those kids and the youth that don't want to play basketball? And they're sitting at home and they just want to draw or dance or do some music. And so this is me networking with creative people that are Christians and saying, let's bring your talents in here and share them with these kids and set up some mentorships and use these gifts for Jesus Christ.
It's awesome. First one went well?
I was going to turn it down because I was spinning a lot of plates, but I mean, they're plates that I love. And my wife looked at me and she smiled and she said, that's fun for you. she said, she said, and it's not a huge commitment. It's going to pull away from the family. It's just a blessing. It's just an absolute blessing.
I was going to talk about something else, but you just said something I want to build on. Talk to us about how many children you have now.
4.
So you have 4 children. Your one daughter's grown, correct?
yeah.
All right, so how old are the three that are in your home right now?
So I have one that's about to turn 8, and then one that'll turn 6, and then one that's almost about to turn 2.
Okay, so you got 8, 6, and 2.
Yeah.
Talk about the pressures of being so heavily involved in ministry and also having your family as a primary ministry. Talk about the pressures very candidly about that.
Yeah, so honestly, I think I have to operate with a lot of intentionality, right? So I know that this whole thing isn't going to work if I don't put family first, right? I mean, the other pieces will just start crumbling. So tomorrow is a perfect example. Someone wants to meet with me, and I'm excited about the meeting, but we're making it a 7 a.m. meeting.
Amen.
Right. So we can meet for breakfast. It's not going to interfere with any family time. Or, sometimes I might schedule a call when the family's in bed. I'll work around what the family's doing.
Sure.
And so putting them first and then see how the other pieces can fit in.
Well said.
Yeah.
Then you get up to, like for myself now, I'm at teens and tweens, and so they're developing their own lives, so to speak, and then that changes things, the ebb and flow of everything. So I'm always intrigued to listen to men in particular that are in a somewhat similar boat of mine to see what their thoughts are. I agree with what you said. I will try to schedule things if I can, if it's needful, 6, 7 a.m. or late at night, or whatever the case may be, to try to not carve into that time that is already kind of at times tough to find.
Well, it's our first ministry.
Yeah.
I mean, it honestly is. I don't want to serve the public, so much and pour my heart out and tell them about Jesus Christ. But then, we have a mutual friend. We have a mutual friend, Jordan Rowley.
Oh, yeah. Good.
And Jordan, he said something to me that I thought was so spot on because he had an epiphany. He said, you know what? Your kid doesn't care if you're out at a bar all day, or if you're out doing ministry all day. All your kid knows is you're out.
Right. That's exactly
So you have to allocate that time of just being home.
I've been really thinking a lot, when I've been entering my home. I have a small home, for a family my size. I've been thinking about it, and it's funny because I'll enter my house and sometimes, my youngest she's not quite 6. She'd be like, "Oh, Daddy, can we play Lena Bina show?" And the other one would be like, "Dad, can you play basketball?" And I'm just like, guys, give me a second. Just let me step in.
Sure.
Well, you realize that that's really one of the fronts. I always say this, that as a minister, someone who serves fully, in the kingdom of God, you're always battling on 2 fronts. You have a home front, you have the ministry, it's a tug of war, it's a seesaw, there's multiple illustrations you can use. But it really is, I've understood over the last 17, 18 years why so many people are happy to just wave the white flag, so to speak. Because as much as you love your family and you feel called to ministry, it can be very, very difficult to do if we're honest. And it does take that word intentionality.
Well, the thing is, what I've noticed is when God calls you to something, he doesn't stop the other things.
Correct.
Right? So it's not like I got, he called me one thing and I got a nanny at home taking care of things.
Exactly.
Or, so there's always this, I still am carrying the same load, but he'll give us that strength. But I have to be intentional and prioritize.
Intentional and prioritize. Those are 2 good words. Really 2 good words for any pastor, minister, person who's really involved in
very recently, and see, this speaks to the love at Grace Covenant, because my wife Jolene and I were talking very recently, because every Wednesday night I was doing a prayer meeting with the church. And I said, in this season right now, my family needs me.
Yes.
My family needs me, and it's important just that I'm there. Sure. And no hesitation.
No hesitation.
And they're still meeting. But I said, in this season, I have to step away just to be there for the family.
Amen. It's funny you say that. I've been meeting with a group of men. Tuesday nights, been doing Bible study, been calling it House of David. It's been about 2-3 months now. I enjoy it. These are great men. I'm learning. We really have a good bond. Yesterday, I found out a few days ago, it was my children's homeschool basketball banquet. Without hesitation, I'm just like, guys, I can't make it, so on and so forth. Of course, my wife's not even thinking that was a Tuesday night. But I'm just saying, you grow in an area like that. It's not even a thought, right? I can't make this. I have to do this. This is the greater thing. This is what I need to do. And it's the priority.
It is. Sometimes I think what helps me with that, and maybe this will bless other people in ministry that may be listening, is those the deathbed scenario. right? I mean, you're laying on your deathbed. You know, what are you going to regret?
Sure.
You know, what are you going to wish you had more of? And it's like, man, I'm going to want more time with my kids. I'm going to want my family to know that I was there for them. I'm going to want to point my kids to Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well said. We only have, believe it or not, we only got about 5 minutes left. But so I want to fly overseas for a minute.
Okay,
I want to fly over to Guatemala.
Yeah,
where I know you did a lot of work at Guatemala. I think you even planted a church at some point in time. Talk to us, sir, just about, we got about 2 or 3 minutes. Talk about the Guatemala experience, what you've done, where that's at, what contact there is.
Guatemala started when I was working with Heritage Christian Services. I think it was back in 2000. They were looking to send a team there. And in that same time, I just wanted to be a servant. So I just shot up my hand and said, look, please send me. And I was so new at Heritage, they actually declined. And, but I don't think they got enough takers that wanted to go. So they called me back and they said, if you're still interested, we would like you to go. I said yes. And the reason why I phrase it like that is because it showed the heart. I had to get home and look where Guatemala was.
Sure.
I didn't even know. I said yes. And then I was like, oh, okay, right there, Central America. It was such a time of prayer because I didn't know who was going to pick us up. I didn't know where we were going to stay. I didn't know anything. But since that time, I was going every year, sometimes multiple times a year. So I went 20 times before we moved there in 2017.
Amazing. Yeah, you actually, that move you went over, which is a big uprooting.
Sold everything, went with 2 kids and, and my wife and, like 9 bags of luggage and, just a lot. We sold everything, sold our home, sold everything.
Yeah. You were able to make it back. And
yeah.
That was a few years now?
3 I've been at Grace Covenant Church. Yeah.
Amazing. And
bringing me back to Grace Covenant Church, I then found out that Grace Covenant is just such a mission-centered church, right? For such a small congregation, and they support like 40 missionaries all around the world. This coming April, we have our 46th year mission conference. It's amazing. It really is. It really is.
That's amazing. I saw you have Harry Vellacoop.
Yeah,
I heard him speak once at conference I went to in Elam. I learned a lot.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear him.
Man, I'll always remember that because I was very impressed with his presentation. I really learned a lot from him. But with that being said, we only have a few minutes left. We do this to every guest. This is called the Rescue and Revive Gospel Show.
Sure.
So we always have every guest, either 1, 2, 3. We always have them share the gospel with anybody who may be listening. So in your own words, you have 60 seconds if you share the gospel with those that are listening.
All right, yeah. I think for me, I would like to phrase it in the framework of separation.
Sure.
So it's that from that original sin in Genesis 3 that we were separated from God, and I know a lot of people see it like that there's that cavern that we're far away. But for me, sometimes even that becomes an oversimplification.
Yes.
Right, because how many times are we, or how many things are we separated with? So it's separated from spiritual blindness, being lost, separated from my own lust and self-indulgence, right? But he came in the flesh to save me from that. I can't cross that cavern on my own. And that's the important thing to really grab a hold of, is that I'm stuck. I'm stuck as a prisoner in my own sin without him.
That's a good word. Yep, there's a separation, and only the cross of Christ and his death, burial, and resurrection will be able to bridge that gap. And it's all grace. I tell people that's the thing that separates Christianity from every other, if we want to use the term, religion in the world. It's what God's done it.
Right.
And we can't do it. So
you're not earning it.
No, beautiful picture there. Well, Pastor Matt Smeltzer, Grace Covenant, Bethlehem Family Shelter, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Again, you can tune in to the Rescue and Revive Gospel Show. For those of you who have watched or listened on Facebook, thank you. Facebook Live, WYSL. 92.1 FM, 95.5 FM, and 1040 AM. Sundays at 4 p.m. Plays again, 11:30 p.m. right before Monday morning of each week. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Rescue and Revive Gospel Show today. Please